Oh, hi. Hi, folks. No wonder nobody's answering me. Can't hear me. Can you hear me? Anyone online hear me? I have no sound. Hi. Aha. Good now. I'm on.
Can't hear on YouTube.
I'm on. Hello, everybody. Welcome back.
I've got you now.
You got me?
Oh, you're not.
I'm good to go.
Some reason there's a delay, you see, from a few seconds.
Oh, there's a delay on YouTube.
Yeah, so yes, when you said, "Can you hear me?"
I know the YouTube comes later. Yeah, I know it's odd.
But it's working out.
We get used to that in the Gompa during the basic program, because when Katsun puts it on YouTube, it's a delay, and so we hear the conversation we've just been having. Anyway, back on Zoom territory. So there's a couple of us here in the Gompa. Some are still making their way back. How are folks doing?
All good?
All good, thank you. Ingrid, nice to see you. And Wongmo's saying it's cold here. We had a gorgeous day and then it started to get cold again. Yeah, wind, and yesterday was that storm. We had hail, thunder. It was all happening. But today's sunny day. Plus ça change. Bon appétit.
Nice banana, Ingrid. So I'm going to leave you on this view because on YouTube, otherwise everybody's really big on YouTube. That's because Ingrid's got a...
Yeah, well, whoever's got their mics on and things like that.
I'll mute myself.
Yeah. And
She's going to mute herself so that
we should
she's
come
gone,
up then.
so she can have her banana in peace. Stacey, hello. Did you get all the materials? I hope you did. You have to unmute yourself. I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. Do you know how to unmute yourself?
Yes, I got it. Yes, I did. Thank you very much, Venerable.
Yeah, sorry. I actually saw yours before somebody else who emailed me even later than you, but I forgot. So sorry. I did get to it yesterday.
Oh, that's all right. That's quite all right. Thank you.
Have you joined us before?
Yes, I'm a member actually, but I haven't been to this course before.
Great. Excellent. Welcome.
Thank you.
I love your background. Is that one of those lovely screen shots?
It's actually a photo I stole off Facebook.
You shared.
So
you shared.
I shared.
Thank you. No, it's lovely.
I thought it was beautiful.
It does look beautiful.
And I like, I like painting, and it inspired me. I'd like to try and duplicate it in my painting.
Oh, good. Wonderful. That's wonderful. Then you can have your paintings in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Wonderful. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Sarah's back. And Jennifer, how are you? I haven't said hello to Jennifer. Hi, Kate. I know you said the sound's not happening, but that's okay. The wave worked.
No, the sound
No,
is...
whose?
Oh.
Whose?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, where are you?
Oh, sorry. I'm in the middle of Redcliffe Markets, and I've been wandering up and down, listening since about 9 o'clock this morning, and it's been really great.
Well, it's good to transform your market experience with a bit of wisdom, realizing emptiness. Very good.
Yeah, it's been great. So I'm going to put you back on mute.
Okay.
And,
sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
I'll show you the crowd for a second.
Okay. Yep, it's all happening there. Social distancing. Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Very good.
Okay.
Enjoy.
Okay,
Enjoy.
thank you.
It's fascinating what people are doing while listening to teachings. Yeah, Yeah. Okay, well, I think we'll get started anyway, and everyone will make their way when they make their way, those who are still coming up the hill here. Yeah. Okay, so so we have this, we're towards the end of the outline on session 3. Only 3 more to go, no pressure. Okay, so meditation, so why coming up here? Oh, first thing, understanding the non-duality of the realization of the mind and emptiness is wisdom. So that's a bigger thing. We'll get to that. Meditation is the continuous concentration on this wisdom without any distraction. So before the continuous concentration is the first thing to develop. So when we see this presentation as it's presented in the Lamb Room outlines, it's cultivating, you know, the higher training of concentration, right? Out of the 3 higher trainings of ethics, concentration, and then wisdom, the concentration one. And as it says in the foundation of all good qualities, by pacifying distractions to wrong objects. So this is, I think we mentioned yesterday, the attainment of calm abiding, Shine, of the 9 levels of calm abiding. And one doesn't have to have achieved that to start using analytical meditation, but you need to have a mind stable enough to do the analytical meditation. So, so it says, by pacifying distractions to wrong objects and correctly analyzing the meaning of reality. So what we're investigating here is what are the correct points to think about in order to be analyzing the meaning of reality. How do we think about it? So that's what this presentation is. Please bless me to generate quickly within my mind stream the unified path of calm abiding and special insight. So when we say to quickly generate, and there was a question that came up in the in the break, gap break, it works, right? First of all, we generate a level of concentration, of stabilization of mind, and then we apply the analytical meditation. We go through all these logical points, and any time that you have an aha moment, you stabilize on that. When you think, well, maybe before you think, I get that point, when that point arises, you think, right, got it. You stabilize your mind on that, and when your mind weakens, then you go back to the analysis. And so you go backwards and forwards. We toggle backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Eventually, there's no backwards and forwards. Eventually, we realize that these two are not separate. So at the moment, we say we've got calm abiding meditation and we've got the wisdom realizing emptiness. And you get to a point where these two can join. Now, it takes a little bit of time. Does that surprise you? Something to aspire to. So I wanted to also refer to the 3 principles of the path, 3 principal aspects of the path. If you have the retreat book, it's on page 255, the bit I want to read, which is the 3rd principle, which is that of what we're investigating now, establishing the correct view. Remember, establishing the correct view is to counteract all our misconceptions, mistaken views, and so forth, ordinary minds. So verse 9, the reason to meditate on the right view, without the wisdom realizing ultimate reality, even though you have generated renunciation and the mind of enlightenment. So these are the first two principles of the path. The first one, the mind of renunciation, of definitely wanting to emerge from samsara, right? Which on the basis of which to become liberated from samsara, we have to at least have that thought. You've generated the mind of enlightenment. And so, and the mind of enlightenment, which is bodhicitta, which is, you know, our aspiration as Mahayanas to become a Buddha for the benefit of all beings. So we want to follow that path. So when we look at the 5 paths, by establishing in our mental continuum the bodhisattva vows, either aspiring, engaging bodhisattva vows, and it's said to have an effortless bodhicitta, a spontaneous bodhicitta, which can be, and most likely will be, a contrived bodhicitta, contrived mind of bodhicitta. On the basis of that, we enter the path of accumulation. The path of accumulation is the accumulation of a lot of merit. So that comes up next. We need a lot of merit to be able to even have a direct realization of emptiness. So it's a quote from His Holiness at the end of yesterday about, you know, sort of with a mind, setting our motivation for our practice, for our realization of emptiness, which is the wisdom wing, but setting the mind of bodhicitta for that makes our mind much more powerful, and therefore makes your practice much more powerful. So then you, on the path of accumulation, you reach this union of calm abiding and special insight, and then you go on to the path of preparation, because you've accumulated enough merit, you've had that realization of the non-duality of these, so that, and then enter the path of preparation. Actually, the first beginning of the path of seeing is the direct perception of emptiness. So at that point, you generate ultimate bodhicitta, which is the mind of, you know, you've got that conventional bodhicitta, you've got that aspiration to become a Buddha for the benefit of all beings, plus you have this direct realization of emptiness. So that's what's ultimate bodhicitta. We looked at very briefly last time, those who were here last time. So that comes the beginning of the path of seeing, which means you see things directly. And I would just caution you that even to arrive at the path of seeing is one countless great eon. Okay. And then we have to, right? So then, yeah, don't hold your breath anytime soon. Okay. So then you have to keep accumulating merit, engaging in the bodhisattva's deeds, which was the last module of looking at the 6 perfections, those who are doing the bodhisattva's way of life. We're looking at that in more depth with Geshe-la here currently. And so you progress then along the bodhisattva grounds, and you've already sort of eliminated the sort of manifest afflictive obscurations. And then we're looking at the innate ones, which is the more subtle level. So more and more purification is coming along, right? And you do that for another countless great eon, of course. And then we still have these subtle, so we've directly realized emptiness. We in sync with reality. When we're in meditation, we totally get it. We've got this sense of non-dual, no subject, object, no this and that, see everything directly as it is, not at our, you know, not with the elaborations of the mind, but nonetheless still, when we arise from the meditation cushion, we still have an appearance of reality. So we don't believe that appearance is what, oh, Christina's not here now. We're having this discussion in the break. You have an appearance of reality. So we're grasping at that appearance of true existence. We've still got that innate grasping at that, even though we have the direct realization of emptiness. We know that this is not true, but there's still a mere appearance, right? And this we have basically until we achieve Buddhahood. So we're eliminating more and more. And this is called the cognitive. So you've completely abandoned the afflictions and their potentialities, their seeds, which is the potentials, which is the more innate. So so there's no more imprints, there's no power ever for an affliction to ever arise in your mind, but there's still this subtle grasping at things to be truly existent, and that gets abandoned on the from the seventh ground bodhisattva up to Buddhahood. So that's another countless great eon. So does that give you some perspective? Just when you get frustrated about, when am I ever going to get rid of this I? So when it says 3 countless great eons, it also doesn't mean literally 3 countless great eons. What's a countless great eon? Anybody? Venerable Wongbo. The time it takes.
If Mount Meru.
If Mount Meru.
And the silk scarf or something or other, or your robe.
Your robes.
Brushing against it.
Brushing against the great mountain.
Once every 100
years, and the time it would take to erode that mountain. It's rather overwhelming, isn't it? It's a hell of a long time. But what it is saying is it's that much worth of merit we have to accumulate. So the more merit, so it's not like you get onto the path of accumulation, you accumulate all this merit, and then you don't have to accumulate any more. You have to accumulate vast merit, all of the bodhisattva's deeds. But with the bodhisattva's deeds, they become more powerful, right? The bodhisattva becomes more powerful. He's able to emanate more and more bodies, which is very useful to have lots of bodies, because you can go lots of places and help lots of beings and accumulate lots of merit in doing all of that, because that's your job, right? That's the bit Venerable Wongbo wants. Keep working at it. You'll get there. Okay. So perspective, it's a hell of a long time. So here, I've got to come back to my outline. Where is it? Yeah, the meditation. So we're doing this toggling, and then the deeds, accumulating the merit and the wisdom while so while you realize from the viewpoint of the meditation that everything is like an illusion. Everything is like an illusion. So we need this vast, for this, we also need vast amounts of purification. So we're doing purification practices, we're doing our meditations and trying to get single-pointed concentration. And then when we've got a stable enough mind to make it serviceable, to be able to then do the analytical, then we do that. Then we make that stronger and stronger. And even, the bodhisattva on the path of seeing and then on the path of meditation is familiarizing over and over and over and over again with, really letting that perception of the wisdom realizing emptiness sink and get more power to it at the same time, while engaging all these massive deeds, practicing the 6 perfections, and attracting beings and so forth, doing all it takes. And in a bodhisattva path, a Mahayana path, it's on that it's at that seventh ground that there is liberation from samsara. So you've completely eliminated all afflictive obscurations and their seeds. And that, so it's a different presentation to the presentation for those, for like the Theravadan practitioners whose sole focus is on self-liberation. And this is, you know, and so then the wisdom that is achieved on the Bodhisattva path is then when you attain that final, on the 10th ground, it's called the Exalted Wisdom, because it's the wisdom of a almost Buddha, right? So it's the having complete omniscience, having completely eliminated these cognitive or knowledge obscurations, the subtle imprints. So there's no more even appearances to the mind of anything existing truly inherently from its own side. Now, I think we have to, at this point in time, take all of this on faith and go, yeah, way to go. Whatever that's all about will come later, right? I think, yes. But really to say, perspective being that rather than get frustrated, as Venerable Wangmo said before the break, of when we notice and when we're able to relinquish any sort of it, any nanosecond of attachment to the I or belief in it or anything like that, whether in meditation or not, you know, whether face to face with someone who's pressing your buttons, just rejoice, delight in that, because that is phenomenal, right? That's a result of all the accumulation of merit, purification practice, and so forth. So excellent, well done. Well done, you. Okay. And the fact that we're even still here talking about this, you've done it before, right? You've done, well, probably, well, myself, not attained Buddhahood. That'd be great. One day, yeah.
I was just thinking about how you say it's like countless eons.
Countless eons.
Is it fair to say that we don't know, and there's this many times you've got to go around the mountain, we don't know necessarily how many times we've gone around the mountain?
We don't know how many times we've gone around the mountain.
You could be close to the next bit.
You could be.
You might not know.
You could be absolutely close to the next bit and you don't know, you know, and this is where you hear the stories of those who, just as they were falling down the stairs, got it, you know. So far, I haven't got anything falling down the stairs except a bruised body. Not that I'm making a habit. I'm not, really. It wasn't stairs, it was a slippery fall. Yeah.
Both wings are true, aren't they? Like,
yes.
On one hand, you could be very early, but you could be very close.
One would conclude that you've done a hell of a lot before because you even come running to the Dharma, and that you even, whatever level of understanding we have of this, we're not going, what the hell? I'm out of here. This is crazy, you know? Yeah. That we even see this as something logical. That's incredible merit and incredible, like, past connection with the Dharma. Of course, until we get some clarity, like the Buddha did, to be able to perceive past lives. And you do get more and more clairvoyances through those levels of, you know, the 9 stages of shamatha practice, which of course then you can only achieve in a retreat setting, eventually, you know, in a retreat setting. You can't get too far without that. But even with what we're able to do in our ordinary lives, and that you're still going, and some of you after 2 years still going and still persisting and even getting ordained, I mean, not to say, you know, holding vows, wanting to hold vows and so forth. You know, Geshe Tenzin Temple at Institute Lama Tsongkhapa, I remember him saying one time, it totally blew my mind. He said, we've all been to the peak of existence. So the peak of existence is the last level before you know, beyond that, you're out of samsara, right? You're liberated. And it's just like, really? We've all been there. So what happened? What happened was the grasping, you know? Yes, innate familiarity. I love innate familiarity. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So when we get that familiarity in a meditation, that's what we stabilize on. We don't even want to verbalize it, because as the Buddha said, it's indescribable, it's inexpressible. Once we verbalize, merely labeled, where imputation comes, elaboration comes. So that's why it's so hard, you know. We use all these analogies to describe it, isn't it? So amazing. Okay. All right. So yeah, accumulation of vast deeds. And so once we're under the influence of, you know, we're cultivating our understanding, we're using our cognitive abilities, using our wisdom, like our capacity of our mind to think in the direction we want it to cultivate the wisdom. We're using the meditation of continuous concentration and then analysis. When we're able to do that without distraction, plus all the accumulation of merit under the influence of this, the practice will come even in dreams. Way to go. And even better is to remember that in dreams. So we talk about, you know, it talks about in the bodhicitta aspect of engaging in these practices day and night. That means when you're asleep. So that's an advanced technique. And so there's like the dream yoga practices and so forth. And even they say, well, I'm not there yet. We can do all, you know, visualizing as you go to sleep, you know, visualizing lying down in the lap of Chenrezig, visualizing the light coming in, or visualizing Chenrezig at your heart, visualizing. I like the lying down in the lap of the Guru. It's all very comforting. Bless my mental continuum, and that I'm sleeping for the benefit of all beings.
I do that one. I love
Venerable Yangshan loves doing that one, sleeping for the benefit of all beings. And then every moment of your sleep becomes virtuous, right? Even you're out for the count. It's virtue. So amazing. Once it has come in dreams, it will come at the moment of death. When it comes at the moment of death, it will be present in the bardo. Slight typo there. Once it is present in the bardo, it is certain to be accomplished accomplishment of the superior siddhi, the special realization, on the basis of which you become a Buddha. So, way to go. All right, that's a promise from Lama Atisha. I think he might have known a thing or two. One would assume that he would know that because he'd been there. Okay, so we're now at session 4. Oh my God. I look at the clock and I get a bit, oh. So, yeah, dependent arising where nothing stands alone, everything interdependent. So we've been referring to dependent arising, we just sort of look more in depth. So this notion, so this is unique to the Buddha's teachings. That's why we have, you know, does everyone get a copy of In Praise of Dependent Arising? The prayer, Dependent Arising of Praise. Has everyone got a copy of that? Graham. No, we handed them out yesterday. You might have missed. So I had some extra copies here somewhere. You got a copy there somewhere? Okay, there's some copies there. Okay,
Could you
so
also mail that out?
yes, I can.
Okay, thank
I
you.
missed the FPMT link. It was interesting with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Actually, I might email out the other one, because then you've got, when His Holiness was teaching on this last week, was it? Week before? The translation was the translation by Thubten Jinpa, which is a different translation to this. This one's the FPMT one by Gavin Kilty. Anyway, so that commentary that His Holiness was doing, the English translation that Thubten Jinpa was doing, was reading. Yes, His Holiness was teaching in Tibetan, that's right, and Thubten Jinpa. So it was his own translation that he was using. Okay. So homage to my guru, the youthful Manjushri. We're not going to read it all, just these first few. Seeing and speaking of dependent arising, he was wisdom supreme, teacher supreme. I bow to him who knew and taught the all-conquering dependent arising. So this is called the king of reasonings. So we've got this 4-point analysis, a 7-point analysis, and so forth and so forth. And this one is said to be the king of reasonings, dependent arising, because it's the most powerful. It cuts the root of cyclic existence. Of the suffering existing in the world, its root is none other than ignorance. The understanding to kill this root, you said, is none other than dependent arising. How could those of intelligence not see dependent arising as the heart of your doctrine? Where is greater praise of you, therefore, than in praise of dependent arising? So this is Lama Tsongkhapa praising the Buddha for giving this teaching. Whatever depends on circumstance is empty of nature. What greater teaching is there than this? The foolish, however, seize on it and only tighten chains of extreme views. So nihilism, eternalism, permanence. While for the wise, it cuts entangled nets of fabrication. Benevolent teacher, going down, you taught to help all living beings. Emptiness is the essence of those teachings, its highest proof, dependent arising. Those claiming it proves the opposite, those denying its very existence, how will they grasp your teachings? For you, emptiness seen as dependent arising does not render as contradictory emptiness of self-nature and ability to function. So what this is saying is the wisdom realizing emptiness and the philosophical view of dependent arising are the flip side of the coin. So because of dependent arising, we can say that things conventionally exist. Because of the wisdom realizing emptiness, we can say ultimately they don't exist inherently, truly from their own side. So we've got to see that these two, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, are complementary, not contradictory, complementary. It complements each other. And when I was first asked, I was asked at a youth conference, Youth Buddhist conference in Sydney, and I was sort of, they asked me to lead this discussion about emptiness. Can you imagine? It was the first thing. I'm like, I know nothing. I went straight to Geshe Sandra. I said, Geshe, what do I do? I can't do this. And he says, talk about dependent arising. Because everybody can get at one level, and then you chip away to the next level, to the next level, to the next level, right? And we gradually develop our wisdom on that. So dependent arising. According to the Buddhist teachings, we have a natural tendency to project a sense of independence on the things, events, and our own sense of self. That's just what we've been talking about. Such independence implies a sense of autonomy in such a way that things appear as if they stand alone on their own, unrelated to other things. So some synonyms of this independence, and keeping in mind some of the terminologies used are refuting other schools of philosophical thought, Hindu and Buddhist schools of, of thought, of trying to get some sense of there's got to be something there from its own side. There's got to be some partless particle, etc. In other words, partless particle is one that can't be divided. And even you get to, so Graham, I haven't had time to dip into the book he gave me. Oh, no, was it the article, the one about the body and the minutiae, the extent to which you can analyze? Can you say anything about that? Anyway, it's
the way that the mind can detect very, very minute, subtle changes in your well-being.
So the mind can detect very subtle changes in your well-being.
Down to very, very small, 100 times smaller than atoms.
100 times more smaller than atoms.
Which is what's controlled by your mind. So you think a thought.
And it's controlled by your mind.
It's controlled by your mind through your body, and your body reacts to it.
And your body reacts.
Yeah, that's what you can make
The interdependence of body mind at a subtle level. And the Buddha realized this. I mean, he wasn't a physicist, but he sort of knew physics, right? He knew this level. So it's amazing what you can know through your meditation practice to realize these things. Incredible. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. So this independent self we've been refuting this morning, autonomous on one's own, self-contained, self-determining, self-governing, self-reliant, self-ruling, self-sufficient, self-supporting, separated, unaided, unallied, unconnected, unconstrained, uncontrolled. I think I get that one. Totally. So in Chandrakirti's commentary on the 400 stanzas, which Geshe was teaching last year here, and maybe more than last year, but he finished it rather speedily last year. He wanted to get to the end and just like, hold on, Geshe, could we spend another year on those last few chapters? Anyway, he says, so Chandrakirti, we do not propound non-existence, we propound dependent arising. It means having no inherent nature. It means not arising by its own nature. It means giving rise to effects that have the nature of such things as a magical illusion. We're going to look at that again in more detail. A mirage, a reflection, a celestial city, a God realm, an emanation and a dream. It means emptiness and absence of self. So we have all these different ways to access an understanding so that we can, different ways of thinking about it that just might be useful for our own minds to think about it. We experience this notion of independence in different ways. We may feel an object exists on its own, unrelated to its past causes and conditions. I think we do this all the time. I mean, any object that's around us, personally, I do not think, now this microphone was, I mean, as far as I go, is Margot bought it.
And bless her for that.
And bless her for that. And people contributed to the buying of it, and thank you very much, you know. That's about as far as I go. But, you know, of course, we're taught to analyze back and back and back and back, that there's endless, beginningless causes and conditions for this one very microphone here.
Might tell you on the bottom where it was made.
It might say on the bottom where it's made, but I dare not turn it over. But even all the bits it's made of, and then where they were sourced from, and even the person who designed it, and they had to learn, and there's everyone who trained them. You know, I mean, you just go back, endless. And yet what we see is, like, it's popped out of nowhere, right? I mean, we don't probably think it's popped out of nowhere, but we just see this thing, this microphone, or any object like that. So we talked about this quite a bit already. We view someone as intrinsically angry, lazy, and so on. And if you're a teacher, or you're the student, and you're told you're intrinsically lazy, guess what? It's almost like you become intrinsically lazy. Even you weren't in the first place. What was that? That was Graham. Well, somehow you made it. You're not being intrinsically lazy now. You're stretching your mind beyond belief.
I had a mantra.
You had a mantra.
When my sons, who are now in their 30s, were teenagers, were one in particular, and that was love the child, hate the behaviour. And I had to say that to myself a lot.
Love the child, hate the behaviour. Very good. Wonderful.
Yes, and as a teacher, you're taught to criticise the behaviour, not the child.
Yeah.
Criticise the behaviour, not the child. Gompo must know that from his teaching days. No, did I say the wrong thing? Criticise the behaviour, not the child. Yes,
Yes,
that's the right thing. That's the right thing.
That's a bad behaviour, not you're a bad boy.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's another
Yeah. Don't do that behaviour rather than you're a bad boy, bad girl, angry boy, angry girl, so forth, so forth. And with the anger itself or the laziness, none of that arises out of nowhere either. You know, is that lazy child actually incredibly intelligent but totally bored out of their brain because
Don't believe in the word laziness.
don't believe in the word laziness. Yeah.
You're just motivated to do something different.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the Jean Houston, when she was invited to talk to this women's group, and she went along and talked to this women's group in some little town. And she said to the woman who invited her afterwards, I don't know why you invited me here, but it wasn't to talk to your women's group because I couldn't care less. You know, they're not interested. So she's one of these, like in Dalai Lama Renaissance, she's one of those 40 select people from different walks of life, different fields that gathered together to meet with the Dalai Lama to see what was the future in their field of endeavour, you know, mathematics and science and education and so forth, which was very, very inspiring. And anyway, so so this woman took her down, took her home, says, well, I'll come back to my place, and took her downstairs. In the basement was her son, who had made these amazing inventions, you know. And he was failing maths, or as they say in America, math. But he was brilliant, right? And so he just learnt differently. So he would stand in the middle of the room and he could tell you the dimensions of the room. He'd put his hands out and he'd tell you exact dimensions of the room, everything about it. But what he failed at was linear equations on a page. So he had a different way. And so she subsequently met these other kids from the same school who were also failing, but were geniuses, basically. And fortunately, the principal of the school, she was in her last year of being principal. And so she was like, you know, she was open to teaching differently, teaching to the different modes of the students, because otherwise she felt like she was a failure as a principal. No, the teacher's going to be open to that. But that was wonderful because you could take into account. So it wasn't that this kid was stupid and failing or that they were lazy. It was simply that different modes of learning. So anyway, so like that. So we talked about this morning. We might view an object as independent of its parts, like talking about an organization without considering its multiple parts and interactions, like Chen Bezig Institute, you know, it's so many multiple parts. In fact, we had a community meeting here recently, which I think at least, were you here? Somebody at least here came to Zoom. And the first question was, what's your definition of community? We never got to that, actually. We never got to the bottom of that. We're talking about this is a community meeting. What does that mean? Yeah. So we never got that. We never got around to the bottom of that, and we still haven't. So, okay. We may also assign labels to an object as if such a label actually resides naturally within the object. So once we label, so once I see human form, at least I've distinguished it's not a bush turkey, a snake or anything else, human, and then female, and then Yangshan. And then Yangshan exists totally out there, total fabrication, independent from me from that moment on, right? There's a totally separate, independent Yangshan. And even I'm saying that and knowing it not to be true, it's very difficult for my mind to realize that. I still see an independent Yangshan, nothing to do with me. She might say her Yangshan-ness has got something to do with me. But yeah, she's nodding. Yeah, just nun joke. See, this is what we do, right? And then the Yangshan, as soon as I think Yangshan, I think everything, my story of Yangshan, but it's not my story, is Yangshan.
Yeah, that's what we do.
That's what we do, okay? That's what we're doing all the time. It's not to beat ourselves up, it's just to notice this is what we're doing. Okay. So we do this dual thing of subject, object, me, you, this, that, inside, outside, everything, duality, and that we see things as everything as dual, right? When in fact, it's a complex set of interrelationships amongst all of us, amongst everything that exists in the world. So that becomes an object of analysis, of recognizing at the different levels. So the different levels, so all of that's false. The Buddha said all of that's wrong. We've got it all wrong. All things arise and exist in dependence on other things. So we investigate. As the Buddha said, don't take my word for it. You ask yourself, is that true? Is that true? Come and have a look around. It's okay. Welcome. Have a look around. I think this might be, I think we've got a group of friends arriving. It's Sunday. People come. Okay, so everything, as we've said already, dependent on causes and conditions. So we looked more at that yesterday. Everything arises in dependence on causes and conditions. What does that mean? Anybody? Anything? Any examples?
Everything's constantly changing.
Graham?
The seed needs warmth and water.
The seed needs warmth and water. That's one example. We all come into existence, mummy and daddy, or their substitutes, and mind from our side. Mummy, daddy plus mind. That's probably not what they teach you in the biology classes. They probably don't teach mummy, daddy plus mind, do they? No, but the Buddha did. In fact, when you, like death, intermediate state and rebirth, that whole presentation is, that whole presentation goes into elaborate detail, and even other texts, you know, about the whole process of birth. It's very fascinating. But that too is a dependent arising. It does boggle the mind that such, you know, highly realized beings realize these things before science realized them. It boggles the mind constantly. You know, you see the Dalai Lama meeting with scientists to exactly prove what the Buddha taught, which is good because it validates it for the world. It doesn't, it goes out of the realm of this is some religious belief to, oh, this is scientific fact. And because in this world we value scientific fact, then it becomes validated. So it's very skillful, right? Very, very skillful. And so, okay, so causes and conditions, we've got that. Everybody gets this one. Global interdependence. I mean, everyone gets this. Parts or constituents. So this is what we're looking at this morning. So there's no partless. Everything is a compounded phenomena. It's made up of all these parts, the body, the mind, anything, microphone, laptop, absolutely everything is a coming together of all the different parts. And as we were looking at this morning, and then we investigate on which one of these parts do I impute me, I, or, well, we haven't got to the chariot yet. But same, any object. In which part of microphone do I impute microphone? When does it cease to be microphone? How many bits do I take off before it ceases to be microphone? So usually there's like form and function. I mean, in terms of something, an object of the eye, we've got a physical form and it's got a function. Without those, we could say there's no valid microphone there. So at least those two parts. But then we investigate form, and there's a hell of a lot of it happening here. So like that. Okay. Down to its molecules, whizzing around.
All the different parts, they each have a different function too.
Each part has a function. Yeah, the stand and the thing that screws it up there, I don't dare touch. This bit that turns it on and off and doesn't function unless that button is red. It's now red. Continuously red. Etc. So you analyze. Okay. And then this is the most subtle level, what we've been talking about this morning, by mere designation, mere imputation, mere label by the mind. This is the hardest one to get, merely labeled, that I've merely, I remember somebody at Vajrayana Institute, they said in my kitchen, everything in the kitchen has merely labelled on it, post-it notes everywhere, merely labelled kettle, merely labelled cooker, merely labelled toaster, merely labelled, just to keep it alive in your mind, a mere imputation, a label that we put on it. I don't know if you've learned a second language, probably, Eva, how many languages have you learned? 2 dialects, 3 dialects, and English. 3 other dialects is English a dialect? Well, it is to some people. 2 written, yeah. So a few different languages. What I'm saying is I found it very interesting when I was learning French, and I'm still hopeless at French, but bonjour, ça va, I can get that far. But when I was learning some things, I'd say, gee, that's really simplistic in French. So a can opener is a ouvre a boîte. So it's pretty literal translation of can opener. And so when I realized that, I realized it's not simplistic. It's just I elaborate on can opener a whole set of imputations. It simply opens the ruddy can. And that's what they say in French. Well, they don't say the ruddy bit or the simple bit. It opens, it functions. That's what it does, right? But it was interesting. It's interesting to see. I don't know if anyone's had that experience of learning another language and thinking, it's so simplistic. That's not creative at all. Well, guess what? English is the same. But I've got a whole set of meanings behind that. Was that Ingrid? Sarah.
So I was going to say about language, because
language.
I speak Spanish. And for example, it was weird to learn that there is no word in Spanish for toes and fingers. We just say the fingers of the hands or fingers of the feet. So we don't have
in Spanish. There's no word for fingers And there's no word for
For
toe.
toes, we just say the fingers of the part of the body, so of the hands.
The fingers of the hands.
Yeah.
Bits on the
Exactly. So
and the
it's
fingers of the toes.
it's very simple,
fingers of
but
the feet.
in English I have to find the word for toes.
Yeah.
so for the
Oh
fingers.
yeah, I mean, you should see Venerable Parts are not only words but concepts.
Yeah.
When he's trying to translate our sometimes very convoluted questions into a way, he has to find the way that in Tibetan it even makes sense. The question, to find the words for that. So it's true. It's very interesting to look at that. Gopo would be an expert in this, Japanese. And
in teaching language and learning language, you really have to analyze the way you think.
you have to analyze the way you think, yes.
And exactly what you said, the way that we put meaning into words. One word that I like to, when I teach in Chinese, is dian nao, which literally means electronic brain. Electric
What is
brain.
it? Den now?
Dian nao
Can you say it, Eva? You know, she gets it. Eva can
means
say it.
electric brain.
Electric brain?
Electric brain might be
What's it? Computer.
computer. So then I say, well, they say, wow, electric brain, that makes most sense. And I said, well, what does the word computer mean? They said, oh, it just means computer. Well, a computer is something that computes. What does compute mean? Well, the original meaning of compute is to think. So,
Compute means think.
isn't it a computer?
It's
We
a
don't think
thinker.
about that.
This is a thinker.
We have a label that goes onto this machine, this device, and we don't think of the meaning of it behind it. But if you start looking at the why we say things,
Yeah,
you think, well, how did this come about? And that's another lesson in dependent arising.
it is another dependent arising. And then I've got to think about, if I'm calling a computer a thinker, what sort of thinker am I calling it? Because I'm a bit scared that I know it's not a human thinker, but a human has programmed it to think in a human way. Well, it gets very complicated. Rachel.
What would the Buddha see when the Buddha looks at the microphone then?
Well, the Buddha would see a microphone
And
and the lack of inherent existence of microphone. The Buddha would realize the emptiness of inherent existence of microphone, but would see a microphone.
see it as a physical.
Let's say it's an illusion, like an illusion, like His Holiness said. What was that quote yesterday? And he had that sort of aha about the illusion-like nature. So that's why we say like an illusion, like a dream. It doesn't mean that you're seeing something, vague. It just, what is missing is all the extra elaboration. So you see it exactly as it exists, not with all the elaborate story, which I can't even perceive I've got about the microphone, but that I do have.
Might the Buddha see like the molecules in the microphone moving or arising, passing? or
Would the Buddha see the molecules in the microphone if the Buddha was investigating the dependent arising, investigating the parts? Yes.
Or like a reflection in a mirror, where that's not an actual
The-
microphone, but it looks exactly the same. You can see the microphone.
Yes. So there would be, it's with a very, with no attachment, with no story, I can't even say what it'll be like because I've never experienced no attachment, no story. But they say illusory, like a dream. And this is how we train our mind to see things, to see it is impermanent. It is constantly in a state of flux, whereas I don't perceive constantly in a state of flux, right? So it doesn't mean that instead of microphone functioning, they're looking at molecules and so forth. It doesn't mean that, but that sense of, it's...
I could drop it on the floor and demonstrate constant change if you would like me to.
Yeah, maybe we'll drop something else on the floor to demonstrate. Can I demonstrate constant change of flowers? Because the flowers have indeed changed. These are different flowers today.
Went for a completely different look.
She went for a completely different look. So,
Well, you can't change yesterday.
Yes,
You can't change from a mug to several pieces of clay on the floor.
And that's an analysis. When does the mug cease to be a mug,
And it wasn't, it was...
When it ceases to function as a mug. When you can no longer say, it's a flat bottom container for my tea, you know.
And that was the problem with
It was no
Wasn't
longer a
enough
flat bottom.
bottom.
It was no longer a flat bottom container, let alone being able to hold anything. Yes, correct.
Is it how the Buddha sees the microphone depends on who he wants to communicate with? I'm just thinking if he wants to communicate with a dog, he will see the microphone from the perspective of the dog.
The Buddha might see the microphone from the perspective of a dog, if that was useful.
Yeah, or from someone who
But it is interesting. What's more interesting for us to interrogate, how would the dog see the microphone? Some big mountain, you know?
my sister's dog would just chew the end off it.
Or chew the end of it.
And they're colorblind, dogs colorblind.
Yeah.
They only see black and white.
They only see monochrome. So it's interesting. You sometimes remember at Taronga Zoo, you could go and look through the screen that showed you how the animals saw each other, and suddenly camouflage made sense, because you thought, how does an orange and black stripe thing or be a camouflage in the jungle? To a human, it's not, right? But it's not, they're not camouflaging to us, they're camouflaging to other beings like them. So it's interesting to see how different modes of perception helps us to realize ours is not the only mode, and perhaps our mode of perception has some faults to it. So this all helps, I think, with all of this. Okay, things are dependently arisen, dependently originated phenomena. A person is dependent on her body and mind. We've interrogated that. What we haven't interrogated, her family, her past experience. We didn't interrogate these things. We only looked at body, mind, our own social, cultural background, our own tenet systems, belief systems, our own concepts, our own opinions, many, many factors that contribute to each one of us now. And still I see Yangshan as lacking all of that. I'm not saying you're lacking. I'm saying I'm seeing a certain projection from my own side that I don't see is from my own side. And that's fine right now, because, you know, we get on quite well. But as soon as we don't, as soon as I do something to annoy Yangshan, that's going to shift, isn't it? That perception from my side, or maybe from her side, or maybe both. All right. So investigating. Oh gosh. Oh yes, the 6 elements we can leave for next time, because it's how to do it. One way to reflect on this topic is deeply at what we ourselves are dependent on. So think about that. Each one of us can think, what am I dependent on, from the macro to the micro level, from every possible angle that we could possibly think of, past, present, future, like every other life I've been in, which I can't remember, or every other life I might have in future is also, isn't it? Past and future lives, depending on the teachings of the Buddha, depending on my guru, depending on, you know, all the bits and pieces, mum and dad, everything, schooling, education, everything. I'm dependent on Chenrezig Institute right now. My Dharma friends, you know, it just elaborate. We can all investigate for ourselves. And then the 6 elements we'll look at next time. I mean, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. By looking at interactions between what's labeled as outside of us and what's inside of us, we investigate who we are and the nature of our sense of self, what that is, and what we claim to be truly ours. And we realize none of it has some valid base. So maybe we will find we're more dependent in many more ways than we think. I think we will find that. because I don't think you can get to the bottom of our levels of dependence. I really don't. I mean, you can, but it seems endless, you know. I mean, just you could die of old age first, yeah. But because even just on the level of one thing, thinking of, you know, when we do the 7-point cause and effect, just thinking of the kindness of the mother. It says, think about the kindness of your mother in this life. Well, I have to say I never got to the bottom of just that one thing. Just that one, let alone all the other kits and caboodles, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm thinking at a very coarse physical level, we depend on oxygen.
We depend on oxygen.
The right gravity.
Gravity.
Force, the right atmospheric pressure.
Atmospheric pressure.
And the right, like, lack of radiation from sun.
Radiation from sun. I know. There's so many levels at which we can look at this. And what does looking at all this without having to be exhaustive, but it cuts across this unitary, permanent, self-sufficient, independent me. So we're cutting away until we get to the really, really subtle that it's all just made up, just a mere hallucination of my mind, an elaboration, right? So different ways in to this. I mean, I find it fascinating. So language, we're talking about language, concepts, you know, different. We talk about knowledge. And what I found fascinating when I was sort of starting to do some research was indigenous ways of knowing. So not knowledge as one box, knowledges. And even then, because I was looking at feminist methodologies, and my Indian feminist friends and Pakistani feminist friends and Indonesian and so forth, completely different understanding of feminism at the time than a Western concept of what that is. And even my 70s, very old notion of feminism is very different to a modern woman's feminism. So, but it's no, this is the right feminism, you know, or whatever other ism we want to have. So that is interesting. I find so many areas of investigation around this interesting. Countries. I mean, we have these artificial things called boundaries that actually cut across language groups, ethnic groups, and all sorts of things. And they shift them, you know. I think not just countries, weren't we shifting? There was some negotiation between Queensland and northern New South Wales about where we were going to put the border, probably temporarily, because then it becomes territory, doesn't it? And then it's a territorial battle. But it was just about who was going to be allowed in and who wasn't going to be allowed in our sort of COVID-free zone. Well, not free, but, you know, minimal. So it's just like, oh, we'll just shift the border. So we have these artificial things of boundaries and we say, nope, that's us, that's them. And they'll go, oh, well, we can shift that. I mean, over time, you know, Australia, you know, Indigenous people had how many different language groups? 800 or so. I was thinking about that. You know, the whole country was populated. Different language groups, different clans, different bands within the clans and so forth and so forth. They all had their boundaries, you know, which were not recognized then when somebody came and whacked a flag. Oh, sorry, I'm getting political now. In the sand and said, don't know what's out there, but whatever's there, it's ours. I mean, they might have got some terrifying shock. Well, apparently they did. Anyway, we can look at it from so many different angles, right? And it's all useful, grist for the mill. So this is our research. So think about that. We'll have a lunch break because now I can see the time has gone a bit over from, you know, the demarcation of 12 o'clock. And so 1:30, okay. Now, any announcements we have to give? Were there some announcements? We were talking about, oh no, we'll talk after the break about next year.
Yes,
Start
it would be nice to make an
announcement about next year.
if you're able to.
Yeah. So, and I think we're going to have will be discussion on the Dharma Jules group, I'm sure, about our end of year, which is the most important thing, our celebration. I think the word party might be banned currently, isn't it? So we don't have party, we have celebration. A lot of rejoicement. And anyway, so go have a lunch break. Yeah. And do you want people to help you with the water bottles? Going.
We're going for a meeting at lunchtime. So
Yeah.
Probably not.
Probably not. Okay. All right. See you at 1:30. See you on Zoom at 1:30 and on YouTube. Show me something.
I'll just send you it.